More steady.
Well, that's what we're doing now. So yeah, so I'll start the intro, and then people could complain that we shouldn't be doing an intro after we're actually talking. Hey, it's Mossad, FSB, and the FBI here. Yeah, we're all agents here of some kind of intelligence service. We don't know which ones, though. That's the problem. You know, we never know who we're working for from day to day. I'm Peter Duke. I'm joined by George Webb and Addy Adds. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Great to be on the show again. Oh, wait, this is my show with Peter Duke, and this is our weekly spot with George Webb, the great George Webb, peerless in his investigative journalism, and he's streaming to us from Brighton. Isn't that correct, Mr. Webb?
Yeah, Brighton, UK. Thanks, Addy. And Tommy Kerrigan, the great Tommy Kerrigan, should be joining us hopefully in a couple of minutes. And he'll be doing a video roundup here. So I've been here a week in the UK, and I'd love to update you guys. Big, huge shout out to all my folks here in the UK that have helped me on the trip.
Is Brighton where I asked Johnny this question last week because he was someplace else, but I think I went and I looked it up. Brighton is where the Who movie Quadrophenia supposedly took place, right?
I looked all around for him today. Did not see Roger Daltrey at all.
Yeah. You didn't see Sting on his ace face riding around in his on his Vespa?
No. Well, it might have been Sting with a helmet on. I don't know.
Yeah. Addy has no idea what we're talking about.
I don't. Yeah. I don't know. I am tweeting out the link though, so more people should join us this evening.
Yeah, there was a great movie made in the '70s by the musical group The Who called Quadrophenia, and it's about it's a coming of age story in between mods and rockers, so kind of like West Side Story in Brighton, with lots of drugs, I think, and scooters.
And I think that Who album had that Deaf, Dumb, and Blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. You know,
right? Which spun off into its own movie, right?
Yeah. And if you remember, from Soho down to Brighton was one of the lines, the lyrics. So there you go.
So that was.
When you're not Mossad, you know these things. Mossad doesn't pick up on these things, but when you're not Mossad, you know.
So if you want to put on your Tavistock Institute hat too, I think it was Sting's debut was in that movie, and he played a character named Ace Face. That was his name, and he rode a Vespa that had 100 rearview mirrors on it, because that was the thing at that point.
Well, I was in Crowley last night meeting with Deep Croydon, which is right next to Crowley, or Gatwick Airport. And Crowley is, of course, Aleister Crowley. And then L. Ron Hubbard supposedly was in there as well. So Scientology is alive and well here in Southern England.
Well, L. Ron Hubbard and Aleister Crowley were roommates in Los Angeles. I read that in a book called The Great Beast about Aleister Crowley. And the two of them were friends, and they were both highly competitive with Walt Disney. That is, Walt Disney was they thought that Walt Disney was doing something through his cartoons that they wanted to do, which was to create a new kind of mythology that would take over religion, or become a religion. And so, Aleister Crowley had his OTO, and L. Ron Hubbard had Scientology and Disney, and look at what Disney has turned into. It's kind of displaced religion and for in a very practical way for many people. It's interesting.
Wow.
Always have Nazi money behind you if you're going to build a theme park. That's the number one rule. Those Nazi gold bars really help when you're trying to do some really, like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well, I'm in the dark about that chapter, George. So you're going to have to clue me in there.
Well, there is the straw buyers for Disney World in Florida,
right,
where they were jammed in on land in California. They ended up buying a lot of the property there, and it was kind of this group that did the Apollo space shot and so forth. The Werner von Braun and all those Nazi guys, they did it through straw buyers. There's a real contingent in St. Petersburg now that's kind of trying to revive that whole thing. So it's just this one of the little subcultures in America.
Right. Well, here's another little tie-in for Jason Goodman if he wants to, come up with another conspiracy. That my mother's husband. So my father passed away, and then my mother remarried, and her husband, Bob Tyler, was the architect of the Contemporary Hotel in Disney World, and he actually spent quite a bit of time with Walt Disney, flying around in a private plane, scouting all of that territory that you're talking about.
Q-level clearance. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, I know. I have all these questions from my mother now that I can't ask her. It's always that way, right?
Absolutely. Well, so we're going to have Tommy Kerrigan join, but I wanted to ask Addy, how's the book going? Get your plug in early, Addy. That's what I always say.
The book I just released, is that what you're referring to?
The how to cover you wrote another one, or how to cover the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, I thought was.
Yes. Yeah. Plug in that. It is the numbers are improving. They're kind of growing slowly and steadily, which is great. And if people want to learn a bit about the Epstein Maxwell intelligence connections and the coverage of the trial, I'd recommend getting it for $5.99 ebook. It's $9.99 paperback, and yeah, please support and buy me a coffee too while you're at it.
Yeah, I had quite a few people buy me coffees this week. Shout out, thank you everybody. I enjoy my coffee, definitely. So people are taking care of me. I'm happy about that.
That's a good thing.
It is.
Did you see the guy with Metabiota? That how many pictures he had with Ghislaine Maxwell, the head of Metabiota?
Is that Ito? Is that you're talking about, the MIT guy?
No. Let's see.
Should we pull it up, George? Is there a place that we can go pull that up?
Yeah. I'm just trying to pull up. I didn't have it all planned out to talk about this, but now that I'm thinking about it, because of Ghislaine Maxwell, and Addy covers Ghislaine Maxwell so much, the guy with Hunter Biden, the guy who runs Metabiota, is in all these pictures with Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me just see if I can pull up a couple.
I think I have found one. Let me see.
So the Ghislaine Maxwell trial wasn't a distraction. Is that correct?
Yes, I had. Yeah.
Nathan Wolf is the guy. Yeah, Nathan Wolf is the guy, and he just got tons of pictures. And again, it seems like they're recruiting Jeff Epstein and Nathan Wolf are recruiting these old biopreparat scientists from the old Soviet Union bioweapons program, and then bringing them into places like Ukraine and so forth. There you go. And this is a real story. This whole Ukrainian bioweapons metabiota thing with Hunter Biden and the laptop and the Blackberries, big story right now.
Excellent. I'll definitely look into Nathan Wolf, and of course we got Dave Underdown with the addition there.
Dave Underdown, the machine.
Yes.
Yes, human computer. Yeah. The interesting thing is these guys all seem to be like the guy who runs the Wellcome Trust right now, which is a guy named Jeremy Farrar. They all seem to be right there whenever one of these breakouts happens. Like, for instance, bird flu. Bird flu is called H5N1, never crossed over to humans before.
By the way, their big story on the Duke Report last night from Ice Age Farmer. They're deploying bird flu. 500,000 or 570,000 chickens got killed 3 days ago in Iowa. So bioweapons aren't just being used on people.
Well, and that's the way I believe it goes in the ticks and so forth that or pests that are on the birds, and then the poultry workers get bitten and so forth. That's supposedly how it happens. But when it jumped over to humans, it never happened in the history of the world before. The guy to do it is Jeremy Farrar. Jeremy Farrar is also sitting there in China, in Vietnam, on the Mekong Delta for the Rockefeller Institute and the Wellcome Trust when the big breakout happens with coronavirus. So you just wonder if this is a virus vaccine game. These guys stand to make a lot of money, trillions, when this stuff happens. And if you go back to Sir Henry Wellcome in Africa, they've been doing germ warfare for 100 years in Africa. You just wonder if there's a smoking gun here with coronavirus.
Yep, I'm pulling up our high octane speculation ticker just to protect our channel here, George, just so that.
I just said you just wonder.
Yes, you just wonder, right? Exactly.
I just wonder.
Right.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just wondering.
I know. I was dreaming about it last night too. Like it just came to me in a dream. You know.
Well, and you had Zimbabwe, which is now used to be Rhodesia. All these revolutions where there was the white minorities in Africa, and then the black rebel groups, the majority was doing these overthrows. It seems like these bioweapons get tested in all those where there's this inequity in numbers. And I think we're going to have a long history here. This is a can opener. I think coronavirus is going to be a can opener for the bioweapons in Africa over the last 100 years. High octane speculation.
So I've noticed that term high octane speculation is spreading across the internet too. It's like people are using it everywhere. Yeah.
It's like school play. It's going to be big. High octane speculation is good because if you are going to get speculation, you may as well get high octane, high test speculation.
Yeah, exactly. So George, do you want to talk about what you found out so far, or do you want to wait until you're safe back someplace where they can't put a bag over your head?
That can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
I talk all the time is the best policy, I think. And
if you don't have any secrets, they can't get anything out of you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
No, just torture for the torture's sake. But mainly it was to go to all the places that I hadn't spent much time before. I hadn't spent much time at Porton Down, and I hadn't spent much time just seeing if supposedly Salisbury, the closest town, is crawling with Russians. I just had to see if that was true. Russian bioscientists. It's true. There's Russian bioscientists all over Salisbury. And they were brought there mainly by Christopher Steele and then this other guy named Breton Gordon.
And how did you figure that out? Did you go to a borscht bar?
No, I actually read Breton Gordon's book. But borscht sounds like a good idea. No, you just walk along the street, actually, and the Russian sounds so different than English. Then you go over and say, hey, how'd you guys get here? Well, my father, he works at Porton Down in the health and safety area.
Right.
Oh, there's a health and safety area at Porton Down where they do the bioweapons? Yeah, it's health and safety. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, is that like, I'm trying to remember, what was that Eisenhower, the Health Reassignment Committee, or?
That was Bissell with the Health Alteration Committee.
Health Alteration Committee, that's right, yes. And who can forget Maximilian Robespierre with his Safety Committee, right? The Committee on Public Safety, right?
Oh, yeah. The guillotine.
Keeping us safe. So what else did you find out, George?
Well, those are the two big actors that are moving these scientists around. And then everybody's heard about Skripal. A lot of people have heard about Skripal that gets poisoned in Salisbury and almost dies along with his daughter, which has a lot of holes in it. That story has a lot of holes.
Right, because the thing that they supposedly got exposed to is something that would even kill the people that were examining them, and none of them died.
And the top expert says this, that it would have killed hundreds if they'd have mixed the primary and secondary together.
Right.
It would have killed hundreds. And it's very difficult to do in the field to mix the primary and the secondary together. unless it's like weaponized in a shell or something. And then they put it on his door, supposedly. And then there was this perfume bottle. And then there was a second perfume bottle. And then there was a second death 4 months later. It's very kind of like, the pristine bullet, it's kind of on the stretcher kind of thing. But there's other guy at the other end, sort of a bookend after the fall of the Soviet Union in 2001, a guy named Pasechnik, not Pachenik, but Pasechnik. And Pachenik's brother also
which are different, might be different spellings from the same root.
Could be, because Pachenik's brother is actually quite a notable virologist, believe it or not. And Pachenik could have played that role, or his brother could have played that role, bringing Russian scientists as well, because I believe they have a Russian or Ukrainian background when he was in Italy with Kissinger. So anyway, he is really murdered in 2001, and I've been chasing down his son here and trying to get more. But this is the whole idea of, hey, let's bring the scientists out of the cold. Let's bring them over from the east to the west. Let them bring all their bioweapons too. Then turn down the bioweapons so it's not so much a killer, like you mentioned, and then we'll release it in a controlled manner, in a live exercise, on the auspices that we're developing a defense, and then we'll sell trillions of dollars worth of vaccines. That's what I call the virus vaccine game, and that's what it appears to be. Wellcome Trust appears to be doing.
Well, somebody said to me once that you need to look at the metadata, and the other thing, the meta of this whole Skirple thing was like the Russians did it. Right? Wasn't that kind of the beginning of the Russians? They needed, because Russia for a while had this, Soviet Union fell, and then we were all kind of friends, and there were people like going back and forth between Moscow and all over the place, and people were kind of becoming normalized to the Russians just being around, right? And wasn't that Skirple attack kind of the beginning of we forgot that the Russians were evil because the Soviet Union is gone now, so now we have to go back and kind of ramp this thing up. Wasn't that kind of the beginning of it?
Well, there was the Georgia invasion where McCain said, "I am Georgian," and everybody said, "No, you're from Arizona." No, but there was that little blip, but that didn't last too long, and that was another Azov Brigade country, by the way, supported by Kolomoisky. But that really didn't make Americans, like Oliver Stone says, these people look like us, they talk like us, they, seem to have the same values in terms of religious values. Why are we enemies? Just because some guys that are making weapons want us to be enemies.
Right.
And it seems like that's still at play here. And we're really seeing that big time with the Ukraine propaganda.
Indeed.
We have a guest in the lobby, it appears.
I bet you that's Tommy Kerrigan.
Yeah.
Perhaps one of you could give an introduction. Let me bring him in if he's ready.
I'll introduce you right now. Tommy Kerrigan, how are you?
What's going on, George?
George Webb, coming at you live from UK. I want to introduce you to two of my best friends, Tommy.
All right, introduce me. Wait, George, do you like my username? E. coli. Bioweapons.
Zelensky coli.
Every week I try to do something based on. I was Tommy Moisky, and then I was Tomamir Putin. Last week I was Tom Bass. I try to, but I'm rude, George. Introduce me to your friend. Sorry.
All right. Well, first of all, this is a Hollywood producer, documentarian, creative expert, creative consultant, extraordinaire, Peter Duke in Hollywood, or near Hollywood out there. And then Addy Adds. I think you're in Long Island, Addy?
Yes, that's correct. New York.
And Addy's a brilliant up-and-coming journalist that's going all over the world and facing danger wherever danger presents itself to get the story. He covered the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. He's written a couple books. And then the great Tommy Kerrigan is in the D.C. area. He's on the other side of he's in Maryland. We can't tell you exactly where he is, but he holds a regular podcast. He's had Malone on. Can't count on any times. He's had Ken Alabek of the Bioweapons Russian weapons program on 7 or 8 times. He's had McCullough. He's had all these great interviews and guests.
I've had everybody, and George Webb. And I think of all the guests that are going to get me killed, I do believe George Webb will be the trigger mechanism for the episodes that finally kill me. He's going to be investigating the wrong guy at the wrong time, and Hellfire missile is going to hit my apartment. But until then, I think we got a lot of good episodes ahead of us.
Done.
Hell
Well,
yeah.
Peter, there you go. Introductions are out of the way, and we'll take it from there. These guys hold a weekly podcast, by the way, Tommy. It's called Patty Wagon. The reason is it's Peter Duke and Addy, so it's Patty Wagon. There you go.
Yes, you're very cheeky. Very
Yeah, I
cheeky.
like it.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Tommy.
You as well, man.
Indeed. So George, what are we asking Tommy about today?
Tommy, I always like to ask these guys like Addy and Tommy who get these interviews, like, who did you interview the last week that I missed? And tell me who you interviewed.
Who? I gotta be honest. As more and more time goes on, and I get more podcasts under my belt, I'm realizing my brain just becomes more and more cooked. And at the end of the day, I'll get in bed and I'll go, "Who did I interview today?" It just starts to run together. I can look though.
Well, while you're looking, I'm gonna mention something to George. George, I saw this morning there were a bunch of tweets about Clarence Thomas's wife, because you had mentioned Pachenik, and apparently Clarence Thomas's wife. Again, this is the way it's been reported. I haven't fact checked it. Was sending White House chief of staff tweets about Pachenik's stories about how there were watermarks on ballots, and so she was basically the net was that she was quoting Pachenik, the stuff that Pachenik was talking on InfoWars about to the White House. So this is the Supreme Court justice's wife sending texts about that. And I thought, wow, InfoWars really has a reach, doesn't it?
Well, I guess I'd call that, priming the pump or breadcrumbing or whatever. But there's a cadre. You work with Steve Bannon quite a bit.
I met him once.
Right. But there's an intermediary between you. Put it that way.
We had colleagues in common. Yes, many colleagues in common.
Yeah, and so that they want to grab the agenda. They want to grab the views. Alex is the same way. He wants to create sensationalism around every story. Doesn't necessarily want to wait for all the facts to come in, and doesn't want to leave the studio. And doesn't want to go talk to anybody. Bannon on the War Room, it's kind of like a sandcastles in the mind kind of world. And then they decide on something, and then they just have 5 or 6 people come in and echo chamber it. And this is the kind of thing that happens where, Steve Pachenik is now the source of this story. And Mark Meadows is taking it like it's coming from the Supreme Court, adding oomph to it. So, I think this is where you really have to go to the metadata. Like you said, you got to go to the BlackBerries. You got to say, okay, well, show me your proof. Tell me what Fruman's and Parnas's IP addresses are. Okay. Where do the IP addresses resolve to? Oh, Battelle and Columbus? Great. Okay. And that's what Steve Bannon never has. If you notice on his shows,
we've gone off into the 3 degrees of Saipov truckers land.
Okay.
George,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on a diatribe against Bannon, but I'm just saying that.
No, it's not. It's not even that. It's that if people haven't been following you for 5 years, they have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm just saying this: if you're going to say something about somebody and saying they have a top secret clearance from Battelle Laboratories, okay, for instance, which allows you to deal with chemical weapons and transport them around the world, okay.
Okay, and who would that be?
Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman.
Okay.
Show me, high octane speculation. Show me the IP addresses. Show me that they have an IP address where they have done communications at Battelle Labs in Columbus. Because until you do, it's speculation. It's high octane speculation.
Right,
And,
exactly. So and
I pushed these IP addresses many times.
Right, and so if somebody wanted to corroborate you on the IP addresses, how would they do that?
Well, you can take any IP address, the quad notation, and just do a who is.
Sure, no, I understand that, but are they coming off of the headers of the emails? Where are those IP addresses coming from?
They're coming from things called a skip trace. And when you do a lot of times when you do a court case or whatever, and you're trying to find secret bank accounts, or you're trying to find secret devices, when the drug dealers have 4 different devices, you want to see how they're associated with the person. You order up a skip trace. And I have a person who does those skip traces. And you'd be surprised on how many false narratives get blown away once you have the skip traces, because then you know that, hey, this guy is here, here, and here. And they're in China before the breakout of coronavirus. These are the guys that work with Kolomoisky and work with Peter Strzok and Schiff. So
you bring up an interesting point too, that I think that I didn't really understand until it was on a podcast, by the way, by Neil Strauss. Neil Strauss is a guy, a Rolling Stone reporter. He wrote a great book called The Game about pickup artists, that if you want to really understand hypnosis, pickup artists are practical hypnotists. And that book is actually a really good book on hypnotism. But Neil Strauss does a podcast called To Live and Die in LA, where he talks about the amount of metadata that is available to private investigators if you actually just go and hire the services. That is, there's all kinds of things that we assume that only the police can get, that only investigators can get. But there's all kinds of companies out there that have taken advantage of the fact that when you click that end user license agreement, whenever you install a piece of software on your phone that you don't read, that you're basically giving access to that data to all these third-party services that will allow third parties to be able to track you. So forget Google and Facebook tracking you. Anybody can track you, right? If they know which service to go to and to license that stuff. So this is, I assume that this is a similar type of service that you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. And somebody said, what about burner phones? Well, there's a little bit of a problem with the burner phone, because you can't just get a phone off the shelf. Let's say I'm going to run chemical weapons or biological weapons to Ukraine. Okay, out of Fort Detrick. My name's Lev Parnas. I need to communicate with the people at Fort Detrick in order to say, hey, I'm going to meet you over at the restaurant to pick up the whatever. I need to communicate with you on an encrypted device. This isn't really high octane speculation. You can look at the NATO.
I'm protecting the channel, George.
Yeah, okay. But I'm just saying, you have to go clickety click click bingity bing bing in order to make that meeting happen. The same thing's true on the other end. When you get off the airplane, you got to go bingity bing bing bing. Now, if you were to do in plain text, hey, I've got the vial of anthrax with me, you're going to get picked up by the services, and that's how these things work, right? But you can't go get a burner phone, because you need to download the software and it needs to be sent to you that enables you to talk to the private encrypted network. That's the problem. That's where this latest story that came out about this guy Maxey that's doing this analysis in Switzerland. I don't know if I trust it or not, but he's saying that these programs that Hunter Biden had opcodes to, Department of Defense opcodes, it's been around 20 years. Since his brother was in Kosovo, since Bill Biden was in Kosovo doing the same thing. 20 years. So you can't use a burner phone, right? So that's probably the biggest story that's hitting right now, this Maxey thing. There's ban-ins in there, so I'm cautious.
You can also buy cellular pings also, even if they're so. If you want to pick a geolocation, let's say you want to pick an airport, or you want to pick a bioweapons lab, the parking lot of a bioweapons lab, you can go to different companies and say, I want to buy all of the pings from all of the phones that have been in this bioweapons lab from this period of time to this period of time, right? And then you don't get an ID. You don't get this is George Webb's phone or this is Addy Adds' phone. You get all of these anonymized numbers, but you can actually take those anonymous numbers and then you can request ping histories for those anonymized numbers. And it's a funny thing about those anonymized numbers is that they all wind up, almost all of these things in the world wind up in the same place every night at between 9 and 12 o'clock. And they're there until 7 or from 7 to 9 the next morning. And so these things actually, they have a home. They know where they live. It has an address. And once you have the address for the unique ID number, then you pretty much know whose phone it is.
And the FBI, somebody mentioned in the comments, they do that with the Stingrays, mobily now or remotely. They can do on the move, thanks to this 1033 program where they give excess military equipment to police forces in the country, some $6 billion worth so far.
Right. Well, that's how that's where George Webb started, right? Because weren't they running Stingrays on the mall?
Yeah. One on the Senate building, one on the House building. Yeah, and then I had pinging in Ohio.
In Ohio, yeah.
The pinging went on in Ohio. So, Tommy, what do you think of this crew here so far? How did you want to jump in here?
Oh no, I'm just listening. I don't really know what's going on. I was just thinking. Did you see how Zelensky is going to go try to speak at the Oscars?
And Sean Penn said that if Zelensky doesn't get to speak at the Oscars, everyone should boycott the Oscars or something.
I fucking hope Putin nukes the Oscars. I'm so sick of this world. I mean, God in heaven, if he doesn't speak at the Oscars, there's not a single goddamn thing that we can do nowadays that isn't about look how virtue-sick. It's not enough to change your profile picture to say Slava Ukraine. Now, if the president of Ukraine doesn't come speak at the Oscars, we're going to just... I hope Putin bulldozes Sean Penn.
Well, but Sean Penn may be bulldozing the Oscars. I believe that last year was their lowest rating, their lowest ratings.
Good. We want better entertainment. We don't want the Oscars anymore. We want live stream invasions.
So last year was their lowest Nielsen rating, I think, in history. And if Sean Penn and Zelensky have their way, maybe they'll beat last year's record. Let's just bury the thing.
I hope they
do. I was told that there was a kid went by her. She's 21 now. She's in the university here at Sussex, and she went by her old grade school and she saw a Ukrainian flag above the grade school. She said, I never saw a UK flag or an English flag over my school and the whole time I went there. But now we have a Ukraine flag.
I was in a bagel shop this morning, and they were selling cookies, and the cookies were colored in, like, the frosting was the colors of the Ukrainian flag, but it didn't explicitly say Ukraine anywhere on the packaging. I saw, but it's a local New York company. I thought that was a little creepy. The Ukraine cookies.
I started nationalism and the defense of borders and the distribution of guns to civilians are all wonderful. It has nothing to do with the United States, right? If it's another country, send our men, send our blood, send our treasure, give them guns, and they're stunning and brave. God forbid you want to defend your own borders of your house. I started a gaming channel back in January just for shits and giggles. And I always kind of play around with like the hate speech rules on YouTube because I've been banned so many times. I now realize that on a thumbnail, I was playing this game last night, and one of the tools you have is some spray paint. And so I spray painted a swastika on the wall, but I did it in the Ukrainian colors. YouTube won't take it down because it's technically the Azov Battalion. So that's stunning and brave.
Is that Counter-Strike?
No, it's a game I downloaded yesterday called Teardown. It's like a cool physics engine. You just like break shit and light it on fire. Right. I found a spray can. I noticed it was like gold and there's like blue. And I was like, well, fuck, I gotta show my support for Ukraine. So I did the Azov Battalion. It's not a swastika. No, I'm standing with Ukraine because apparently that's sanctioned now. Sorry if I'm bringing some evil energy in here.
No. Is Peter Duke a CS player?
Peter Duke was a CS player. Peter Duke tried for several years 20 years ago in order to create Counter-Strike TV. And it's a long story. There's actually a video linked at the beginning of my game career on the lower right-hand corner of the Duke Report. It's a Raiders of the Lost Arcade, I think, about. But no, Counter-Strike is a great game. I love Counter-Strike. I haven't played for a long time. But I think it may be the greatest multiplayer online video game ever made. I like the old school version though. I mean, I know CS:GO is like big now and people like it and the Steam stuff, but I like the pre-Steam Counter-Strike world. It was pretty great.
We're getting into gamer jargon here. Let's talk about Sean Penn. Addy, why is he always in the place before humanity crisis breaks? Is he there to control the narrative away from the trafficking honeypots? And Peter made a really good observation a couple of weeks ago now, I think, of all the interesting criminals that Sean Penn has just happened to meet. But he missed El Chapo, so I added that to the list as well. And then I tweeted, Sean Penn is a CIA agent, which just blew up as far as my tweets go. But he does seem to be some sort of intelligence asset, Sean Penn.
And he's Leo Penn's son. Sean is Chris, rest in peace, his brother, and then he's Michael Penn, who's a singer, is also his brother. And their father was blacklisted. So he wasn't a writer, but he was a director. And so I think he did a couple of Star Trek episodes, but he had to kind of go underground, and I think that he was directing things without his own name. So Sean's got a lot of commie heritage.
So he's met with Castro, Saddam Hussein, Zelensky, El Chapo, to name a few.
He's probably just a pedophile. He's probably Sean Penstein. I mean, do we know that Sean Penn wasn't involved with the synthesis of COVID-19? We don't know that for sure. I don't know. I don't have any documentation.
George isn't saying that.
No, he's not. I am. Oh no. I fully represent Tommy's podcast. They're speculating. I'm not speculating. I'm spitting facts. It's cool. I've been banned from YouTube. I've been shut out of Polite Society. So I have no there's no carrot for me to play by the rules of Polite Society. Sean Penn ran Jeffrey Epstein's Island, and he is currently running a bioweapons lab there now.
And we can prove it. No.
Yeah, we can. So I was just talking to a guy earlier about Space Force. He's Brandon Weichert. He's like a space kind of like the space warfare landscape expert. He just briefed the U.S. Air Force the other day on some things, and we were talking about how odd it is that Biden went over to Poland or wherever, and just when it seemed like Putin, hyper alpha male who said that the fall of the Soviet Union was the most disastrous thing in his life, and he's coming towards the end of his life, he now has a kind of way to save face because his blitzkrieg on Ukraine didn't work. And there's almost sort of an off-ramp, right? Zelensky saying we're open to terms. Isn't it weird how Biden goes over there and starts telling the 82nd Airborne, when you get to Ukraine, this is what you'll see, and how Putin cannot remain in power? Doesn't that seem a little odd? Like, it kind of seems like the fire's turning into embers, and Biden goes over there and just dumps gasoline on it.
I don't see any evidence. I've studied military history my whole life. There was a really good military piece that got posted on the Duke Report a couple of days ago. I've got to remember, at Anti-Empire, I think was the name of the website that posted it. I think Putin's gotten everything that he wants. The idea that the Russians are stalled or not getting what they want, I don't see that at all. This is definitely like not a World War II style, we're going to crush the whole government. This is a very tactical implementation of military force. And I think that they're trying to get rid of the Azov battalion, which is basically why Mariupol is surrounded. And the reports that I've seen are that the Azov battalion are the people who are not letting people leave, which is going to...
That's what Nazis do.
That's what Nazis do. Right?
How dare you? They're stunning and brave.
Right.
Slava Ukraine, Slava Azov.
But it seems like the rest of the positions that the Soviets the Russians have taken are incredibly tactical, and they're not trying to take the whole country. They're trying to basically shut down certain parts of the country while they negotiate, and it seems like that they're doing it. It seems like they're doing that nominally. So,
Could it be possible that Biden's going over and kind of like talking shit, whether he's doing it or whether it's at the advice of the military elite? Is he doing that because, in many ways, Russia going into Ukraine is a dry run for China? They can see how the world reacts, how the U.S. reacts militarily, and if I'm China right now, I'm looking at it as, hey, that's not that bad. It's a couple weeks of people changing their profile pictures, and then the leader eventually kind of capitulates and gives you pretty much what you wanted. Is the U.S. going in there now and banging the war drums? Hell yeah. And is he going down there and beating the war drums to say, no, you got to go completely back to Russia? Is that less about Russia and is it more about showing China that the United States isn't spineless and that we will go in there and, I don't know, risk thermonuclear war? I'm not for or against it. I'm just
yeah, no,
conjecture.
I understand. I mean, and again, George Webb was the one who taught me to look at the metadata, and so, I kind of look at the oil pipelines that are running through Ukraine. I look at the idea that the Rockefeller component of the New World Order has had a major investment in China and Russia for the last 100 years. And that you've got the Rothschild component of the New World Order that's heavily invested in NATO, and the Atlanticists, as it were. And this to me, it kind of looks like a pissing contest between those two forces, using, Putin and Biden basically as puppets in order to kind of put together what George refers to as a school play. It's a school play where lots of people are getting killed, things are getting blown up, but still the idea is to create media events in order to get social proof for the moves that you're going to make anyway. So
yeah.
I can see Putin being in opposition to what's going on. I can also see Putin just playing a part like Peter O'Toole, walking into a movie and hitting his marks and saying his lines and doing what he needs to do in order to get the perception of the world moving in the direction that they want. I don't know what is true though.
Sure.
But
do you think he could be playing some like 4D chess? Could Putin be going along with it but actually trying to put forward Russian interests?
My gut tells me that there was some bioweapons false flag that was about to be pinned on the Russians. Yeah, and that Putin jumped in there before they could nail him for it.
That's what I think. Yeah,
and wrecked all their plans. That if I had to guess, that would be my guess.
Well, the metadata of 2011, or when we started following the story in 2017 with Ilyana, it was only 11 biolabs that were known, and that went up to, in the last 5 years or 4 years, to 30 or 31. I mean, that's pretty provocative. Texas, about the same size, only has 3 biolabs. So, whatever agricultural reason that you're coming up with, it just seems very provocative on the border. But so if it was just bioweapons or biodefense, I wouldn't be concerned. And this is my theory about Putin. If it was just the Azov Brigade, I wouldn't be that concerned, because the Azov Brigade is much smaller than the Russian armies. But you put the force multiplier of bioweapons together in a cocktail with the Azov Brigade and Kolomoisky, now they can do some damage, like start pandemics. So, it's kind of like putting Nazis together with Zyklon B. Bad things can happen.
Right. And even if they don't start the pandemics, if you look at what's going on in I think it's Iowa right now with the bird flu, it's like those bioweapons aren't just being deployed against human beings, And in fact, if you read Annie Jacobson and Operation Paperclip, you see that the Nazis were actively trying to figure out how to destroy the food supplies of their enemies.
I love the book so much. I love Annie Jacobson.
Yeah. I'll tell her. No,
please. She won't respond to my emails. So,
okay.
Yeah.
What I like about both Addy and Tommy, though, is they send the email. They don't give up.
It's the hardest thing to do is to send an email. I'm serious.
Yeah, no. I mean, yes, no, you can send it. I mean, Obama said no. Putin said no. I emailed the prison where Ted Kaczynski's being held, and they wouldn't get back to me. So, you got to shoot your shot.
That was the person who was up in that.
Yeah, I know. ADX, I know, and he's held at ADX Florence. He's there with the 9/11 mastermind as well. Neither of them will come on the podcast. A big shame.
Yeah, but you've had Malone on quite a bit, and he seems to like you quite a bit, and Ken Alaback also. So, just back on the Ukraine thing, it does seem like they are trying to play this thing out for whatever reason to test out the new Switchblade drones or to test the new stuff.
Yeah.
It's like we don't want to have just a month. We want to be able to spray it up,
We just did the pandemic for 2 years. The next grift was supposed to be Ukraine, and these fuckers are trying to make peace within a month. Like, no, we wanted some headlines. There are some drones to test out. We're gonna jack up the military budget. We're gonna normalize $1 trillion a year to the DoD. I think what they wanted was autonomous ground drones because we've already seen them in the air and in the sea. I think what they wanted was like iRobot type ground drones, not just the next generation of Boston Dynamics things. Because in a weird way, wouldn't that be like a legal loophole? So it wouldn't be U.S. soldiers; it would be U.S. aid. We could try out new autonomous, and it also
that's the way it always is, right?
Yeah,
but in the meantime, Russia is saying that they will accept people paying for oil in rubles or gold.
Yeah.
Which is what Gaddafi was trying to get away with, but
before we freed him.
But Gaddafi didn't have 3,300 nuclear ICBMs and submarines. So,
Peter, if you bring up kinetic with Q on both ends of the word, Nelly Orr, they actually have an autonomous ground launcher that could fire chemical or bio rounds. And the guy who did the invasion of Libya, especially Tripoli, David Grange, wrote a book called Mech War, Mechanized Warfare. And he was
that's where Club K came from, right? Or was that the same club guy who did Mech War?
Yeah, Club K, I think, came from a journalist in Florida. I'm trying to remember her name.
But you said there was I thought that general was somebody that you had mentioned earlier when you first introduced the Club K.
Well, Club K was developed by Ross Baran Export, and it was made somewhere. The Excalibur missile was made somewhere in the middle of Russia, like on the Volga somewhere. And then their export company is called Ross Baran Export. So that's where the Club K,
Anyway, I'm sorry. You were saying Q something?
Kinetic.
Kinetic is like QINETQ. But Nelly Orr. Anyway, these things were tested at the Redstone Arsenal. And again, I got Fruman and Parnas there, to Tommy's point. I don't need a lot of Azov Brigade. I want to test out all my new mech crap. This is new mech warfare. This is the way we don't really need to do any political operations to get anybody on our side. All we need is an enemy to fire at.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's a complete sandbox to go try out a whole bunch of new DARPA weaponry. Like we just did 2 years of DARPA weaponry, and now they want to try the new stuff, the iRobots, the Boston Dynamics dogs. Wouldn't technically be American troops. It could just be, just slap a Ukrainian flag on it, and we can get some good R&D over there, and we can cover it up as humanitarian aid. Wouldn't even be included in the DoD budget.
This switchback drone is interesting because it flies around as an autonomous vehicle, and it's got a high dwell time, and then it can turn into the missile when it finds a target. I think that's how all these troop carriers and tanks are getting hit. The Russians are like, whoa, we have complete air dominance. They can't put a helicopter in the sky. They can't put a plane in the sky. How the hell are we getting hit behind enemy lines? I think that, and you can fly these things remotely through satellite, so somebody can be there video gaming in Creech Air Force Base in Nevada doing this stuff. It could be Imran Awan over there, high octane speculation, hitting the red button.
You mentioned Parnas, George. Andrei Kukushkin just got sentenced in the Southern District of New York in the U.S. versus Parnas case. I think just last week, he got sentenced to a year and a day, and then I think 3 years supervision. Conspiracy to make contributions by a foreign national, making a contribution by a foreign national.
But
3
see what
counts.
they do with these guys. These are the runners. These are the bioweapons runners, right? And they should be going to life imprisonment. They should be getting espionage charges against them, right? But what you do is then you say, well, now we're going to have you give $1 million to Trump, and now you're an informant for us, right? And now we're going to cut a deal for you, and you only have to serve a year. Where we're looking at, the
Life.
payment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fruman had the same deal, a year deal, and
Yeah, it was a year and a day as well, I think. Yeah.
And Parnas about the same. And they both of their IP addresses go to the. I'm not saying they go to the kinetic shack, the kinetic ground autonomous vehicle shack at Redstone Arsenal, but they do go to Redstone Arsenal.
Well, it's interesting because I saw a video this morning, and if you guys will bear with me, I'll share it. But it's William Kunstler talking about the idea that about what he calls the terrible myth. I'm gonna play it here.
That's the terrible myth of organized society, that everything that's done through the established system is legal. And that word has a powerful psychological impact. It makes people believe that there is an order to life and an order to a system, and that a person that goes through this order and is convicted has gotten all that is due him. And therefore society can turn its conscience off and look to other things and other times. And that's the terrible thing about these past trials, is that they have this aura of legitimacy, this aura of legality. I suspect that better men than the world has known, and more of them, have gone to their death through a legal system than through all the illegalities in the history of man. 6 million people in Europe during the Third Reich, legal. Sacco Vanzetti, quite legal. The Haymarket defendants, legal. The hundreds of rape trials throughout the South, where black men were condemned to death, all legal. Jesus, legal. Socrates, legal. And that is the kaleidoscopic nature of what we live through here and in other places. Because all tyrants learn that it is far better to do this thing through some semblance of legality than to do it without that pretense.
Damn.
So, yep, legal. It's the legal system. It's great, isn't it?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, right? Russia going into Ukraine's the worst thing that's ever happened on planet Earth. But go red, white, and blue. We go bulldoze Iraq, and it's stunning and brave.
Shocking on.
Yeah.
Legal. It was legal.
Well,
right?
who defines legal? It's probably the guys with the most guns.
Yeah, the UN gives a charter or a Security Council decree. I think it was a UN Security Council decree for Iraq. But again,
but I mean, it's in New York. I mean, there's some bias there. Where's the UN? It's defended in the biggest U.S. city. All right, yeah, sure, it's fair.
Well, look at the situation with that Addy's been covering with Ghislaine Maxwell. What did she hasn't even been sentenced yet.
I mean, have we looked at the metadata between her and Sean Penn yet?
That should be done.
That should be done.
See, Addy knows he sees what I'm putting down. He's picking up what I'm putting down. He knows.
They have ties to celebrity for sure. That was the difference between, I think, her and Jeff Epstein. Is Jeff Epstein didn't really have any family at all or anybody. He's alone, right?
Yeah.
He's like a lone wolf.
Yeah, I interviewed the author of Dr. Barry Levine, the author of The Spider, all about the Epstein trial and kind of who he was And that was like a weird thing about him, is just kind of how much of a loner he was, which begs the question then, was he intelligence? And if he was intelligence, was he intelligence from the ground up, or was he just a real freak who was later co-opted by intelligence? But yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like that got buttoned up a little too quick. We're allowed to dance around the periphery of things. There's allowed to be an Overton window about, where did COVID come from? Woo, like, did Russia really have a reason to go into Ukraine? But you get into that dark black hole nexus of how you actually project power on the world. Not nuclear weapons, not cybersecurity, but compromising information or compromising video of world leaders, military officials, and business leaders. That's the one you can't get close to.
Right, and I was criticizing somebody on Twitter this week. There's a lot of people who I'm probably philosophically aligned with. What I think is interesting about the Kunstler thing is that Kunstler is classically a leftist, right?
Yeah. I've had him on twice.
You have.
Yeah, like in the past month. Yeah.
Interesting. So, well, tell us about that.
Oh no, he's a cool cat. He's smarter than me. He just kind of talks. It's great. He just talks the whole time. He's. I don't mean that in a disparaging way.
Sure.
He's absolutely brilliant. The dude has his shit buttoned up. But yeah, no, I wouldn't even. I don't really. Me personally, I don't get the vibe that he's leftist or right. I think he's very. I think he has his views, and I think any labels put on it is perhaps us putting labels. Sorry, sure. I interrupted you.
No, and that's you're kind of making my points. You're stealing my thunder a little bit. But there was a guy. There's a guy who I follow on Twitter, and I don't actually even remember his name right now. And again, people like to criticize opposing opinions by categorizing them as unintelligent or stupid, or they leave all of the different heuristics off the table. So in the and I've talked about this on ad nauseum on this show, is that the way the intelligence agencies work is that they use money, they use ideology, they use compromise and coercion, they use ego and energy, and they use family connections in order to manipulate people into going into the direction or doing the things that they want them to do. So whenever somebody whenever it gets attributed to somebody's lack of intelligence, like I don't think that Eric Garcetti or Gavin Newsom or even Kamala Harris, I don't think any of them are stupid.
Not at all.
They're not stupid.
Not at all.
They may say stupid things some once in a while because you don't have the context of whatever their frame is. Okay, but they're not stupid people, and so it kind of does your own cause a disservice to assume or to point out that the people that you're opposed to are they don't have intelligence, or that they don't know what they're doing, because that doesn't solve any problem, right? That doesn't get to the meat of whatever it is that you're trying to do. So. Yeah. So yes, and what I found is that the closer that people get to the truth, that is trying to figure out what is actually happening, those labels kind of like fall by the wayside. They don't really mean anything anymore. I consider myself an American. What does that mean? I believe in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal, and the furniture that goes with that. But the whole left, right, conservative, liberal, dog whistle stuff, that none of that makes any sense to me anymore.
Yeah, the idea that any of these people are stupid to me is like the most infuriating thing. When people are like, "Can you believe how stupid Anthony Fauci is?" Hey, he's a demon. You don't get to that. You don't get an MD being stupid. You don't get to that position being stupid. Hitler wasn't stupid. He was evil. Stalin is not stupid. Xi Jinping. Oh, how stupid are they putting 2 million Uyghurs in concentration? They're not stupid. JFK was a philandering drug addict. You don't get to that position by being stupid. Donald Trump, he's stupid. Donald Trump had toilet paper on his shoe walking up to Air Force One. That's not stupid, because the news covered that day instead of covering the other news story of that day, how he sold $10 billion of weapons to Saudi Arabia. You're not stupid getting into that position. You can be stupid at times. And as you said, it could be the lack of context that makes one appear stupid, or it could be the tactical use of stupidity. But man, it's the idea that any of these people are stupid is, and not only that, what does that say about you? This stupid guy is ruining the world. How come?
Why are you saying that? Are you controlled opposition? Like what?
Not only that, Not only that, are you incompetent to fight the stupid guy? That just makes you retarded. Like, you know, like that's my logic. He's stupid. Well, then do something about it. I can't. He's smarter than me.
Not only, yeah, hell yeah.
Sorry about that.
Well,
I totally agree, and it's infuriating to me, and that's why my response back to this guy was I gave him the rubric. I said, why are you associating a lack of intelligence with malice? Here's the rubric that the intelligence agencies use, and I put the rubric on there.
Yeah.
You know, I've got it as a macro on my computer. If I type in capital MICE plus F, it just spells it out because I'm repeating it constantly all the time.
that's Peter Strzok's monogram on his shirt, mice, and then the silent F. They can't talk about the family, but Kunstler is interesting because he married Margaret Ratner, I believe. I thought Kunstler was dead for some reason.
Yeah, I thought he was too.
Yeah, he's 73.
Because Margaret Ratner then went on.
Maybe I interviewed a different counselor.
I think you did.
Oh,
Because the one that did I remember the Chicago 7 with Abby Hoffman and all those guys, and I thought Kunstler was the guy.
let me check. Let me make sure I'm not talking bullshit. Oh yeah, I interviewed George Washington. Another Washington.
I was feeling pretty dumb there.
That's my fault then. James Howard Kunstler.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that his son?
I don't know.
I think it is his son.
Well, nonetheless, I can tell you about that one, not the other one.
Well, tell us about that, and then we'll look up William.
Well, I already told you about him, so.
Okay.
Where are you going to be at next week, George? What's your travel plans like?
George is going to be in Kyiv.
I thought about it. I really did. And not Kyiv, but I thought about maybe I still might go. But there's no sense in dying over like tonight, there's a huge missile strike in Lviv. It's hitting the NATO training bases, and where Azov has been getting these switchbacks. I believe they've been getting these high-tech switchback drones, high-octane speculation in Lviv. So, and I've been saying that for a while. Anyway, supposedly...
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, they got hit. But the point is who wants to die in one thing like that, and then you're done reporting? So maybe you have a day where you say, well, here's where the NATO guys are. Here's where the switchbacks are coming in. They all say Turkey and NATO. And here's all.
George, you've come a long way from asking them to hit you in the middle of the forehead.
Well, I'm just saying the ultimate irony is you get hit by a Russian, Kharkiv missile. Then you're out of it. You're out of the ball game. I mean, no one is trying to kill you. If I get killed, I want somebody to be trying to kill me. Rather than
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Important distinction to make. Are they allowing people into the country? Like, would that even be feasible?
Yeah, if you go in as a humanitarian cover, and you can go in as a volunteer, I think. And I've looked into it, and it's a little dicey though, because if anybody rats you out and sees you, and then they say, "Oh, he's a spy for Putin," then you get killed that day. So it's not a big return.
Well, and people think you're a spy now.
I know. It's like I have people who will rat me out right now to get me killed. No problem.
Right. I don't think you're doing a good job if somebody doesn't accuse you of being at least 2 or 3 different intelligence agencies at this point.
That's right. Well, I want to go back to Kunstler for just 1 second.
Okay.
Because Margaret Ratner, I saw her at the trial, at the Roger Stone trial. And she had married Kunstler, which is the #1 civil rights attorney, right? I think it was Abby Hoffman and all those guys up at the Chicago 7, right? And then she turned around and married Bruce Ratner, who then ended up dying during the whole Russiagate thing, when they were offering the emails to Julian Assange. And Ratner, I think, was the one who was saying, "Hey, Julian, it's not who you think it is. It's the FBI offering you the emails. It's not an independent source." They were trying to fool Assange into thinking that the DNC emails were from Seth Rich.
And isn't that how Roger got in trouble too? With with Congress, with lying to Congress, because he was talking. Who was?
Adam Schiff brought him in front of the House Intelligence Committee and said that his testimony didn't agree with the
Right.
testimony.
And who was the radio DJ that he was? Oh, I'm thinking of.
He was his lawyer, Parker.
No, I'm thinking of Bubba the Love. It had to do with Hulk Hogan and Kunstler. They were all. I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing things. It's the.
I think you're thinking the Hulk Hogan case would be the
Peter Thiel.
Well, there was Bubba the Love Sponge.
Okay, I have no idea. Nothing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm riffing. I'm trying to put two things together. No, there.
Bubba the Love Sponge.
No.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Roger Stone had a fight with somebody. He didn't like the way he took care of his dog. What was that? Who was that guy? And
Randy Credico. Randy Credico.
Randy Credico. And Randy Credico was telling Kunstler's wife was a go-between between Randy Credico and Julian Assange.
No.
And Roger Stone. Okay, I'm probably remembering this wrong. So you can put up the high speculation, high octane speculation. Okay, Randy Credico was talking to Kunstler's wife. Kunstler's wife was talking to Assange. Roger Stone was acting as if he had a direct contact to Assange, but he didn't actually have the direct contact to Assange, and he lied about it in Congress. Isn't that the way it went down? Something like that.
Yeah, I think the thing was that Bruce Ratner was the counsel for WikiLeaks in the United States, and the James Jones or John Jones was the guy in England, here in London. They both died in the middle of this, and Trevor McFadden, who was the guy who ran the school, the kind of like what we have at Neighborhood News in Michigan, where the school for journalists kind of thing here in London. So
Did he die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A week before the election.
Right.
That's when Braverman made the run for the Russian embassy because he thought he was next. But
and then all of the secure drop guys died too, right? Or Aaron Schwartz and
yeah,
Schwartz killed himself supposedly.
Suicide.
Killed himself. Yeah.
well, Bradley Manning was kind of connected a little bit to the secure drop guys. I can't remember the guy who did the James, who they supposedly had a relationship.
Weren't there three guys who did secure drop, and two of them died, and one of them turned out to be an FBI informant?
Yeah, that's how it always is.
Yeah.
Bradley Manning adapted with the times. He didn't try to fight the machine head on. He just cut his genitals off, and he was welcomed as a hero. That's called adaptation. That's called reading the room.
Speaking of that, I went out to Wales.
George, I'm sorry if you're embarrassed to have brought me along today.
No,
You're making me laugh hard, man.
You had the juice. You had a lot of the humor. So I went out to Cawdor Barracks, okay, and I was on the train out there. But I thought I'll first stop and talk to one of the greats, Johnny Vedmore, right? And so I stopped in Cardiff, and we had been communicating a little bit. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll be able to hook up with Johnny. Well, somebody told him I was Mossad, I guess, and somebody else said I, had that one thing with Hopsiker, and where I was covering what Hopsiker was saying about mint press and this Muhawesh, which was really kind of threw a little shade on Whitney Webb, but not really. I think Whitney Webb is fantastic. I think Johnny Vedmore is fantastic. They work together on a lot of articles, and this is the type of thing where the machine is smart. They throw shade to keep people not working together. She wrote a great article on this Wellcome Trust, which Johnny helped consult on, that I just read. Just fantastic about all the kind of weird transhumanist things that Wellcome Trust is getting into with this Wellcome Trust Leap. So, Whitney, if you're out there, love you. I fantastically support you. Keep doing the great things you're doing. I just was wondering why Muhawesh was getting all this money for Iranian reconstruction. And Johnny, if you're out there in Cardiff next time, mate, I'll shout you a pint down there at Mermaid Key.
If if people are getting canceled, this is completely 180. But if people are getting canceled like retroactively for tweets they made like a decade ago, could you? What would be the opposite of cancel? Could we like champion
Well,
retroactively?
that's what I've been working on. So
Well, I'm thinking about like the truckers who allegedly had swastikas. Could they have just been preemptively supporting the Azov Battalion and standing against Putin? Could Trump and the Charlottesville Nazis have actually been years ahead of progressiveness?
dude, you're good.
Was Hitler fucking standing with Ukraine? We don't know this. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to think outside the box.
We don't know this, but here's what I do. But here's what I do know. I do know that people get canceled, all left, right, and center every day, and I'm trying to aggregate all the people who are getting canceled. Okay. So I don't know what kind of RSS feed you've got, but if you've got an RSS feed, I'm pulling all of the stuff together on the Duke Report.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I got permanently banned for having on Dr. Peter McCullough. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no. You're the kind of person that we're looking for. So, so to that end, you were talking about the good work that Whitney Webb is doing. There's another guy that I found just a couple of weeks ago, George, who's got an article on Unlimited Hangout this week. It's the featured story right now on the Duke Report, and the guy's name is Matthew Arrett, and he's a Canadian. And this guy has done some deep dives from the Canadian side that I have to get into his books. He's written books on this, but his contention is that all 8 of the American presidents that have been assassinated or died in office were attached to the same type of controversy, and he goes through the whole thing and lays it all out. So, and he does very detailed citations and deep dives. So this is a article that got published on the Unlimited Hangout yesterday, which is on all of the Rhodes Scholars that are in the Biden administration, and he takes it back. He goes through the whole history of the Rhodes Scholarship and how it interfaces with the Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum, and then he names all of the people and goes through all of the sources. So it's great, and so I highly recommend that people take a look at this guy Matthew Arrett. I just found him a couple of weeks ago. He's got a fantastic website that's got dozens of videos and really in-depth stories, and he publishes a magazine. And I don't know why I only found out about this guy a couple of weeks ago, but thank you, Whitney Webb, because she's publishing him. So,
hell yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the Rhodes, I mean, if you want to go to the Wellcome Trust, that is where Rhodes bioweapons kids go to do bioweapons stuff. You know, I mean, the connection between Rhodes and Wellcome Trust is umbilical. It's very close. With the guy who's currently running it, this Jeremy Farrar, who is always where the first time anything gets humanized. So every time bird flu for the first time gets humanized, there's Jeremy. Swine flu, oh yeah, there's Jeremy. Oh, coronavirus, oh, there's Jeremy. Bats to humans, and it's always this repetitive trope: animals that never could ever infect humans, infecting humans.
What's his name?
Well, Jeremy Farrar is the current chairman of the Wellcome Trust, and both Johnny Vedmore and Whitney Webb write a lot about the Wellcome Trust. They did a great piece on it.
Yeah, they've done lots of podcasts on it too.
You think he has any connections to Sean Penn?
I think Sean Penn has connections to Emilio Estevez. I mean, they look a lot alike.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I don't know. My brain's been like completely fractured the last 2 weeks. I finally read The Devil's Chessboard and Family of Secrets by David Talbot and Russ Baker, respective. I've read a lot, but those 2 books kind of find those, and the week preceding that, I read Gangsters of Capitalism about Smedley Butler. I mean, I've always been aware of the Cold War and all the machinations of the CIA, and the kind of being like a clearinghouse for businesses and banks. But I mean, my brain's been cooked over the last 3 weeks to the point where like nothing is beyond the realm of possibility anymore. So when I see, like, all kidding aside, when I see Sean Penn come out and just start really making statements about Zelensky, it just seems odd to me. I mean, to me, it's your wife walking in the room and you saying like, you know, how you doing, Tommy? And me taking my phone and going, this is my phone. You're not going to touch this. I am not cheating on you. You just kind of look at it and you're like, well, can I see your phone now? So when I see there's this just wide like circle jerk and overreacting populace to what's going on in Ukraine. When Henry Kissinger comes out and says like or George Soros comes out and he's like, we got to stand with Ukraine, man, every hair on my neck stands up. It just seems so. There's so many invasions. There's so many wars every day. We're blowing up like 9 countries every day with drones, and no one cares. But when this happens with Ukraine, everyone just comes together right away and stands against it. Which, I mean, on a side note, if that doesn't speak for racism in itself, blow up brown people with drones, no one gives a shit. When a bunch of people with blue eyes and blonde hair get invaded, the whole world comes to a screeching standstill. But do you get what I'm saying? Like, doesn't it seem weird just how we just come out of the Middle East, and although it was a sloppy withdrawal, everyone, probably rightfully so, gives Biden some sort of credit for getting us out of that endless war. And it hasn't even been a year, and they're all frothing at the mouth to go defend Ukraine. Does it not? Am I the only one who just doesn't feel like 1 + 1 = 3?
They wouldn't be putting Kissinger in the mix and using the heavyweights unless they were having some problem.
Yeah. I don't think it was Kissinger. I think it was Soros. I think I misspoke.
But I mean, that's even worse. I mean, that's
yeah, right. All right. That's really saved my point.
Negative points, when you throw him in. There's always a currency to be manipulated if you're talking about George Soros. Addy, you asked me where I was going. I'm going to go back to the United States soon at some point.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have a travel date yet or anything, or any travel plans you want to share? Like
no. But I would thought about going to Rotterdam. I thought about going to the Erasmus lab that weaponized bird flu, that made bird flu human infectable. Because I think there's a definite connection to Ukraine biolabs. But look at all those. Wow.
Yeah, this is to Tommy's point. Somebody pointed this out the other day. I think it might have been Richard Grove on, but you go into Google image search and type in yellow blue COVID or COVID yellow blue, and then you start to wonder about how long the Ukraine thing has been in the pipeline, because there's so much artwork associated with COVID-19 public awareness that has the blue and yellow color scheme associated with it. It's a little odd, don't you think?
What did you type in for that?
I typed in blue, yellow, COVID.
Okay. Yeah, it's a similar vein to those cookies I didn't buy this morning. But I don't know if I brought this up or not, but Whitney Webb featured an episode I did with George on Epstein back in the day. So I was going to bring that up earlier. And didn't you bring up a comment, Peter, earlier?
I did. Somebody about asking George something about converting textile mills into some kind of chemical production.
Yeah, you probably saw that Biden's had some communication with DuPont in these laptop emails and so forth. There was a guy from DuPont. I was at one of the trials. It was the Uranium-1 trial. He came up to me. He was a chemist, and he was a biologist. He'd worked with Bruce Ivins, but he had a PhD in chemistry as well. And he said to me, the reason why the Nazis used textiles in the space between World War I and World War II is because they could be disguised. You only have to add one more nitrogen to the double bond in textiles to make TNT. That's trinitrous, whatever.
Toluene.
And so when Imran Awan and Rahm Emanuel had a textile mill that they stole from these 12 farmers, and it looked like they were building a huge factory there. People talked about it might be weapons, it might be bioweapons. The Nazis used textile factories, and I can't remember.
They did it with Krupp Industries as well. They were making like forks and like metal wheels, and also researching like longer bore barreled artillery guns.
Yeah.
Textiles. Peter Nygaard. John, wait, no, who's the other one? Wexner, right? Textiles.
Well, Wexner is Mr. Compromise there in Columbus. You know, isn't it interesting? They always have the supermodels with the high cheekbones go to places where there's Q level clearances and bioweapons. Why isn't it like a New York runway? You know, why wouldn't you go there? You know, I guess Epstein did have some go there, but here's Columbus, Ohio, which is, you know, you can get some great Ohio State jerseys, you know, football. But there's really nothing there other than Battelle Industries and the bioweapons, and that's where Les Wexner decides to make the Gap and the Limited and all these things. And that's where Jeff Epstein has his warehouse there on the tarmac. So it's because of the Q level clearances there, I believe. High octane speculation.
Do you think? Sorry, Mr. D.
I was just going to say Q level clearances are energy security clearances, right? So nuclear.
DOE.
Yeah.
And bio is with nukes.
Okay.
At Q level. Yeah.
Doesn't it seem like there could, if you tried to find order in all of this, and there's not always order, but if there was order in all of this, couldn't you say that like the U.S. was jonesing for another Cold War, and in order to kind of move the Overton window and get the public support, you could do it with bioweapons? You could say the first was we released, and this is obviously speculation, we released COVID right by the Wuhan laboratory, like, which is absurd because, I mean, if like a virus came right out like in like the town next to the CDC, anyone with half a brain probably wouldn't blame the U.S. You would imagine someone released it right there intentionally. If we let's just walk that out. If we did it in Wuhan, and let's say we're getting ready to do it again somewhere in Ukraine and blame it on Russia, what you'd be doing is forcing Russia and China together in one neat little bow, and we could say there's the enemy of the West, and then you get NATO up and going, and then you have this whole other Cold War that you can milk for 45 years and kind of reestablish hegemony. And let's say Russia thwarted that, and they found out there was going to be a bioweapon attack, so they went in and invaded Ukraine. We're still kind of getting the same end result. We're pushing Russia right into the hands of China, who are the only ones not sanctioning them. Do you think there's any sort of manipulation by us to intentionally lump them together so we got a great big boogie monster?
It depends on who you define as us.
United States, American-based, North American-based military-industrial complex banking nexus.
Okay, so this reminds me of there in the lower right-hand corner of the Duke report. There is a debate between Alexander Dugin and Olavo de Cavaliero, where they actually debate exactly what you're saying in 2008, and okay, exactly what you're talking about right now. They were debating it in 2008, and Cavaliero points out to Dugin that his misunderstanding of the United States being controlled by the people that you're describing right now is an error in his logic for his being able to figure out the forces that are controlling the world, that the globalists use the United States and the military-industrial complex and the tax base and the blood and treasure, okay, in order to manipulate the world, in order to get what they want, but to mistake the government of the United States as the people who are in. That is, we have this fantasy that we elect our leaders, and that the demos is in control of the leadership here, and the reality is that there is a super leadership that is telling the government what it's going to do, and it tells each government what they're going to do, the same way that people play Risk on a game board, and so it's a little bit of a difficult question to answer from that framework, just because I don't think that the people who are necessarily in control are the same people that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. In the same way. It's not. It wasn't just North versus South Vietnam.
Right.
There were probably some people in there that were like, "Do you think it was just our plan?" And it's like, dude, there are bigger powers behind both of us, the Soviet Union and the United States. So then you got to wonder, well, the powers that are just utilizing the United States, the government, the military machine, the tax base, and kind of co-opting it for their own agendas, what would their desire be? In a weird way, I kind of think it's the same. I think they want a bipolar world. It's easier to divide and conquer, and it's easier to kind of muddy the waters with if it's the Cold War, like you kind of just accept that there's like CIA black ops going on. If it's peacetime, you have a little more problem with that.
Well, I think that ultimately what they're aiming for is one world government, and
Well,
the way that you do that is you collapse 200 governments into 3 governments, and then you collapse the 3 governments into one government.
So maybe they were trying that in the Cold War, and maybe the Soviet Union wasn't supposed to fall, and maybe it's part 2, and they're like, we've learned from our mistakes, and how else to do it but make a massive alliance? You just call it. Didn't Biden just release sanctions on India? What the hell are we doing putting India and China and Russia together? I don't know. Seems like we're kind of cutting the world in half.
Yeah, it seems like we're dividing it into continents.
Yeah, like collapsing 200.
Peter, would you mind blocking major? They're conspiring for my death here in England, and I just want to get out of the country before MI6 or MI5 take me out.
Major Badcock, is that what we're talking?
Yeah, why don't we get rid of him?
Is there a chat?
Okay. Yeah, there's a chat. And
I thought you were just.
Yeah, he's gone.
I thought George was just delusional.
Yeah, if you look
Major, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Tommy, you're going live all around the world. Let me tell you,
you're on YouTube, you're on Twitch, you're on D Live, you're on Odyssey, you're on.
Bold move putting me on YouTube.
Twitter, you're on Twitter.
Bold move
Periscope.
putting me on Twitter on YouTube. You'll get. I am radioactive. You will get nuked.
Well, thanks, George.
Sorry, yeah.
Well, I survived. I was on last weekend, and they're still here. I couldn't.
All right. Well, hey.
I don't know. I think perhaps our high octane speculation banner
might actually save you.
Maybe saving us. This is. I didn't mean to get rid of it there, but
you should just have it circulating my box the entire time.
Yeah, we should probably just figure out how to do that. Yeah, exactly. So, I think that, as long as there, my favorite, there's a couple of different ways of framing things that I've brought up earlier. My friend Fleckus Austin Fletcher, often when he's about to say something a little bit controversial, he'll preface it with, I had a dream last night. And his co-host goes, well, what happened in your dream? And then he explains what happened in his dream. And he ends every sentence with, in my dream. and that way he manages to just kind of sail under. George Webb started off, though. He had the best one, which was, I'm not saying... ... I'm not saying ...
That worked for a long time.
It was very good, George. It was a great conceit. It was very good.
Yeah. And now Wolfchild is also conspiring for my death here in England. So let's get rid of Wolfchild.
Well, we have Jason Burmis on at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If anybody wants to join us then, just plug in that show. So
great. I love Jason. He's a good guy there. I think the guys in InfoWars, like I knew what's the one kid that was
Owen
Schroyer. They work really hard.
They do.
They really go out and try to get the stories. And I'll just say this. I mean, Alex is a tough guy to work for.
I think Burmis no longer works with them.
No, I think he does the 4th hour every once in a while. He gets a lot of crap for it. Here's the thing. I don't know. I think about this a lot because I listen to I love David Knight. I think David Knight is great.
Yeah.
And David Knight has a lot of legitimate criticisms of Alex Jones, but Alex Jones fills a niche. That is, and John O'Loughlin and I were going back and forth last night because I took Russell Brand. I took him off the Duke Report because there's too much weird stuff in his past. That the fact that he's saying everything that I want to hear this week.
He's such a grifter. He's such a grifter.
Well, I think you might be too kind in calling him a grifter. I mean, it might be worse than that. But you know,
It's only going to get worse.
You know, I've talked about this before. You know, people like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon says everything I want to hear. Like, but I don't link to Steve Bannon. I don't link to the kind of red meat for lemmings kind of stuff. It's like if you've got evidence-based journalism and you want to talk about what's really happening and you want to cite your sources and you know, come up with logical conclusions to things without name calling, then I'm interested, you know. But you know, Russell Brand has a great audience. He uses a lot of neurolinguistic programming. I can tell you from having studied neurolinguistic programming, he's very good at it. But there's enough creepy stuff. Somebody sent me a video. Like, you know, people send me videos all the time. People I have on my shows, and they go, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And it's like I have to go watch it and, you know, figure out what I think about it. But the reality is that, you know, if people are presenting evidence, like there's one weird thing about Russell Brand. There's one source. I think it's reclaimtheweb.net, and he uses it as a source all the time. There's something that's very weird iconographically about. I can see Addy. Maybe Addy's going and finding it now.
Oh, yeah, I can pull it up. You said reclaim the web?
I think it's called reclaimtheweb.net. Okay. And it's weird because he uses it as a source all the time. And they have a very kind of like odd logo. It's kind of like, is it Antifa taking over the world? Is it Azov battalion? Like, what is it? You know, it's like 3 red arrows going around the world, you know. And he's always using them as a source. And I thought, well, who is that? So I'm watching him one night and I'm looking it up. And it's like, it's one of these websites where there's no about. Like the Duke Report's called the Duke Report. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, it's like Peter Duke's website. George Webb is always trying to be George Webb. Addy Adds is trying to be Addy Adds. But these websites where they have these generic stories and there's no author, you know, and there's lots of links. And so I found the contact and I wrote them an email and they said they didn't even know that Russell Brand was using them as a source. And I said, well, how do you not know that? Because he's got 5.8 million followers. And when he uses your site as a reference, it's got to be bumping your traffic. And they said, well, for privacy concerns, we have no analytics. So we don't actually know how many people come to our website. Well, I'm calling bullshit on that because there's a certain amount of infrastructure that you need. Like I know that on the account that I've got the Duke Report running on right now, if I get too much traffic, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to like, you know, turn the knob up, right? I'm going to have to add some more resources there. So I don't know. It's all very weird. It's all very weird.
George, could you do a skip trace on Reclaim the Web?
You could
go right back to Langley.
Yeah. You know, a lot of these are, you know, total, Lee Stranahan used to say, total spectrum dominance.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what issue it is, I want 18 guys that are my guys, all kind of doing variations on the spectrum.
The same story. Yeah, it seems organic.
And then we'll have cash going to just those 18, and then no one else will get any support. And that's why I say the most important thing you can do today is buy Peter Duke a coffee, or buy Addy Adds a coffee, or Tommy. I think, do you have a Patreon yet? No, nothing, right?
No, just come to Rumble and subscribe because I'm permanently banned from YouTube. Just do that.
Tommy's podcast.
Yeah, and Rumble, and you can make some money on Rumble, right?
Very little. It doesn't matter. No, there's no winning in this. I'm just going to be killed either through desperation or by the CIA. So just come subscribe as a middle finger to the world.
There you go.
Right.
Or don't, or do it in a happy manner.
And the MI6 assassins. And
like, joke's on them. I'm friends with the CIA assassins, so it's going to be a battle to the end.
Well, I wanted to tell them that they wanted to make sure everyone knew that I was GEOWEBB on Venmo.
Good.
So the assassins got their plug in tonight.
Good. The assassins can, yeah.
This is a crazy site.
Yeah.
No one doesn't track your analytics. Anyone that has any sort of just
okay. So this one has an author, Kevin Macon. I don't. And Ken is a teacher. Okay. So this one. Okay, great. So and maybe they added this since I I pinged them, or I missed this before, and if I did, I apologize.
Yeah. I mean,
But I was going through the site and I was trying to figure out, well, who is this site? I was going down here and I was going contact. That's how I contacted them, as I clicked
yeah.
on contact. But I was trying to figure out, and apparently they are a subscription base. You're supposed to pay money for this. But they don't do a really good job of explaining what it is that you're paying for. You could buy a T-shirt and stuff. But anyway, this is a site that Russell Brand cites a lot on his videos.
Yeah, I don't know. I might just be like kind of proving my own point earlier when I was like, I don't like calling people stupid because they're smart. That might be my own flaw, me calling Russell Brand a grifter, and it could be much worse than that. It might not just be because it's the clickbait thumbnails. He's showing his teeth and his gums and his eyes are wide open. And it's like the New World Order said, what? Like, you will never believe this. It's the same shit. It's nothing new. It's Pfizer depopulating the world. What does Klaus Schwab have in plan for you? But then I have to look deeper, and that guy doesn't need a grift. That guy's made a ton of money.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't need a grift. But if you do some background, I can send you some links and stuff. Like, again, I take all of it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know what's true. But he did do a kid's book on the Pied Piper of Hamelin that's really creepy. It's a really creepy kid's book.
You should throw up the high octane speculation.
We should put up high octane spec. Well, no, that's not a high octane. The kid's book is not high octane speculation. But
Russell Brand wrote that kid book on Epstein Island with Sean Penn.
There you go. Well, if you read the book, it sure seems that way.
I mean, I'm not saying that they did, but man,
I'm saying that we don't have definitive evidence that they did.
In your dream.
In my dream, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
Peter, just for you, I wrote a Substack today, about 40 pages, and so it should be up on your.
Did it? Well, if you did, then it'll be there, so we can go look. Hang on
I
a
want to
second.
make sure the RSS feed works, and I'm going to send Tommy your number if that's okay.
I will. Okay. Hunter laptop revelations continue to corroborate George Webb's deep BlackBerry source.
Yep. There we go.
Okay, so let me know when you do that, because generally what I will do is I will spend a couple of hours a day reading all the links, because the links are always updating dynamically, right? So I'm going through the links. There's an ad here. I'll have to show you that the stop screen, share, Brave tab, Duke report. There we go. Addy posted a story, so I moved the news stories to the top. So Addy's story is at the top. So George posted a story. Let me know when you post it, because just so that everybody knows what my strategy is on this. I spend a couple of hours a day. Carrie helps me, because you can't read every story. Like, there's a lot of stuff there, and we read as many stories as we can for 2 or 3 hours, and then we try to figure out which one we think should go on the top, because that's the featured one, and then we make the art. And that's the major way that we're promoting the site right now, is that I pick a story, I pimp the story on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. It's funny, I'm trolling LinkedIn, and then I look down the rows and I try to find out whoever has posted something new. Like Ice Age Farmer is up there now, but Christian at Ice Age Farmer, he publishes like once a week or once every 2 weeks. So like Mark Crispin Miller posts sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. So I try to keep the stuff up at the top of the page fresh. So the more you're posting, the more I'm going to push it up. And in one day when I get when I hit the big time and I can hire a software developer, I'll just make it so that the newest ones always pop to the top, which is the way that I'd like it to happen. So
I post like 3 episodes a day, so technically I should supersede George, right?
Yeah. Technically, yeah.
You already, Tommy. Even if you just did
you.
I also, Tommy, I wrote down Smedley Butler, because I didn't know, I hadn't heard of that book before, but I'm also, I have a book section, and I try to put down every book that is basically revisionist history, or the sources of all of the things that we are talking about. because this is the only way that you find this stuff out. You don't get it by going to 8th grade history. It's
Yeah.
like
No, that's I started last year. I tried it. CIA's organized crime. I've interviewed him, Douglas Valentine.
Yeah.
He has a lot of good CIA. He has the Phoenix program. But
he's an interesting guy, Doug Valentine.
Yeah.
I screen capped a tweet he deleted this morning.
yeah. Doug Valentine's a trip. I like talking to him. But I try to interview all these authors because I started last year where I listen to an audiobook a week because I realized that nothing that I was getting from the news mattered, and really no history that I learned at school mattered. So now I just every Monday I start a new audiobook and just listen to it at like 2x speed. Only nonfiction, only history. I've probably learned more in the last like 15 months than I have in the prior 30 years.
Well, you can't ignore fiction, because once you understand that fiction is part of the plan, then you got to go back. You got to read H.G. Wells. You got to read, Aldous Huxley.
Yeah.
You
Brave New World.
You got to read Orwell in a more critical way and try to figure out whether or not Orwell is actually criticizing the things that he's talking about, or
trying to usher it in,
or he's programming it in. But anyway, on each one of the books, what I do is there'll be an Amazon link, and I don't love Amazon, but if you click on that link and you buy something, I'll make 10 cents or whatever it is that I make. But if there's a free version, or there's an audiobook version, or there's a scribed version, or there's a web archive version, or there's a PDF, and I found it, I link to it. Every book. Okay. If somebody's done a video, then I will try to find a video about the book. And then if there's a Kindle version and there's a preview, then this thing will automatically have the Kindle version and the preview too. So I try to give people as much information about each book as possible and where to get it, so you don't have to go, grousing around for it. So any books that if I've got errors or omissions, let me know and I'll put them in. I'll look for that Smedley Butler book. What was the other book that you talked about reading this week?
I was going to say there's 2 good Smedley Butler books, Gangsters of Capitalism and then Seizing the White House. The other ones were Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot, which I think is pretty old. Not pretty old, relatively old.
I think I have that here.
And Family of Secrets by Russ Baker.
Oh, that's what I wanted to write down.
That one. Another one that really will kind of melt your brain is a Poisoner in Chief.
Yeah, I read that.
That one.
That's on here.
That one
Stephen
burned a hole. Yeah, that one burned a hole through my brain. All of Annie Jacobson stuff. Phenomena was really good. I actually had on the guys that she talked about in Phenomena. Dale Graff, the head of the CIA Stargate project. I try to interview all the people that I read.
Right.
You can't always get them all.
So I got Amazon, I've got Scribd, I've got free web archive, and then videos, and then these are other books in assassination. Under assassination.
Jesus.
I want to give a
Did you
shout out.
manually do that, Peter?
What?
Or you created that assassination category?
Yeah, I'm always trying, as I get these books in here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what kind of a series you would fit them into, and so I look for a theme, and if there's a bunch of books that have assassination in it, then I just create an assassination series. So
Sweet, awesome.
Chris
Well, I'm gonna have
Milligan.
to get some dinner, guys, because before our next show. So,
all right,
you want to keep going, Peter, and then
no, I'm good.
We
I'm
can
good.
wind it. I just wanted to shout out to Chris Milligan. That's Whitney Webb's publisher. A lot of great books on that. I forget all of a sudden they're
Trine Day.
Trine Day. Thank you.
yeah.
I think we nailed it, guys. We can't do any better than what we just got done.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, we'll talk to all. Addie and I will be back in an hour and 10 minutes with Jason Burris.
About 40 minutes, actually. 6:30. Does that work, Peter?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
I just have to. I set the schedule for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, either way.
No, but it's fine because we're not on Facebook. Because get this, Tommy, I'm on a timeout from being able to stream on Facebook because I posted a Jeffrey Dahmer meme. It was Jeffrey Dahmer in a grocery store, and it said, "If we run out of food, at least we'll have each other." And so they told me I couldn't stream anymore because I posted that meme.
What was that? There was some great rap song from a couple of years ago where it was like "Eat that ass" like Jeffrey Dahmer. I thought that was great.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, with that,
I was gonna say, get banned from YouTube. That one's fun. You can get on my level and get IP banned from Reddit because I pulled that one off last summer. So
well, let's try not to do that. But
I don't want to get you guys banned. But if
yeah,
it does
we got the high octane speculation banner. If that doesn't save us, nothing will. Talk to you soon.
Nothing I said is factual. This is all my own fever dream. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thanks for.
Thanks,
We'll
guys.
do it again. We'll do it again sometime.
Hell yeah, man! Thank you so much. Nice to meet both of you.
All right.
Thank you so
very
much.
Good.
Later, George.
See you later,
Peace.
George.
Thanks, Tommy.